Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Welcome to Muslim Network TV. I'm your host for Canada Today Youth Edition, Mohammed Maxwell Hassan. Yes, my middle name is Maxwell. It's good to be back here. And for today, we got a very interesting topic. Now, with the whole coronavirus situation with COVID-19, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people are turning to online more than ever. And with online, as they say, with great power comes great responsibility. It's unprecedented in human history, the amount of information that we have, the amount of access that we have to social media. It could be used for a lot of good. It could be used for a lot of great things. And there's no doubt about it. There's no question about that. However, the topic for today is more on the other side, which is the negative side, the dark side of social media, the dark side of social media. What do you do if there's people using social media but for the wrong reasons? And you could end up in a spiral and a downward spiral to things that are not good at all. And so with us here today, we got two very, very special co-guests to dive into this topic, to really explore this topic. With us here today, we got brother Astawa Alam. After getting kicked out of school, not once, but twice, he took his education to the streets by building DXM Creative, an innovative web design agency. His story exemplifies success against the odds. By traditional standards, he shouldn't have succeeded. But today, he's led DXM Creative to boast a roster of clients, including award-winning entrepreneurs, international nonprofits, and ironically, large universities. His unconventional path against the grain taught him many lessons, but the most impactful of them is that you don't need permission to start building a business. I gotta tell you that resonates so much with me here. You don't need permission to start your own business. He shares these lessons regularly with business students and aspiring entrepreneurs through actionable content and personable keynotes. Thank you so much, Brother Astawa. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have a great time here today with this conversation about social media. And also, on the other side, we got a Sister Nazifa Rahman. She empowers young women through creative storytelling and authentic content on social media. With a following of nearly 100,000 followers, 100K, she uses her platform to bring light to causes that are near and dear to her heart, such as autism awareness, but seldom spoken about in the South Asian community. It's not really talked about that much, but she uses this platform to bring it to light. Her honest narrative and playful mix of lifestyle and culture has been sought out by global brands such as Rare Beauty, L'Oreal, and even Google. L'Oreal, because you're worth it. And offline, she's an aspiring geoscientist, helping corporations contribute to a sustainable future for all. So subhanAllah, she's got the beauty side of things, and she's also got the geoscientist side of things. Thank you so much, Sister Nazifa. It's going to be awesome having you here as well. It's going to be a fun conversation. So, as always, I like to invite viewers into your stories. I think stories are a great way for people to connect, to get to know you, and figure out what it is that got you to where you are today. So let's go, ladies first. Sister Nazifa, could you tell us a little bit about your story about getting involved with social media, and particularly how you used it as that catapult for autism awareness? Like, what was that about? How did that happen? Please share that with us.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Brother Maxwell, for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here and maybe share some of my experience and some of my knowledge. So where it started off with, as a university student, I wanted to get a part-time job. What are you going to do? Retail was kind of the option. So I didn't want to do any retail. I wanted to do something that I could learn from. So I decided to get a job at Sephora. And when you are working at Sephora, you're getting so much training in the industry, whether it is products, whether it's the brands, from the marketing side, from the ingredients. And when I applied there, I did it from a scientist point of view that I wanted to know what the ingredients were, what makes a brand great. So while I was there, I just constantly received free makeup. As a Sephora employee, you're always getting makeup. So that is something that I've always loved doing as a girl. I just like to feel pretty, try new things on, and getting all this training. I was experimenting, and I would share it on my personal social media. At the time, my Instagram was private, and it was just a couple of friends, family members, and I would share my looks. I would talk about what I liked about it, what I learned from the brand, and all that, because there are brand ambassadors that come into the store, give you firsthand training. So that's kind of where I started seeing that more and more women would want to talk to me, ask opinions for certain things. So then that's when I switched to a public profile. Fast forward 3 years, I graduated, and my Instagram is still growing, alhamdulillah. And now I use my platform to talk about issues that are more important to me, using makeup as just a common language, but sharing my culture, my Bangladeshi heritage, as well as autism awareness. I have a younger brother with autism, and I know firsthand the challenges of raising a child in the South Asian community with all the taboos. And it's something that we don't talk about. So I wanted to use my platform to really share my stories. And alhamdulillah, my brother is an adult now, 19 years old, but he has had quite the journey from childhood to adulthood. And I use my platform to talk about those things, as well as many other issues. So that's
wow, mashallah. So there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm sure it's gonna be fun exploring that a bit, like in terms of how you bridged the industry, you could say, of like beauty versus, and then bridging it to a cause like autism awareness. Amazing. So let's kick it to you, brother Astawa. Talk to us, man. You got kicked out twice of school, and now you built this empire.
One time wasn't enough. I had to do it twice to make sure I did it right.
Talk to us. What happened?
First off, thank you, man. Assalamu alaikum to you. Assalamu alaikum to everyone watching as well. Thank you for having me. Like Naz, my story, my relationship with social media has been one where it's given me opportunities and allowed me to connect with people everywhere for so many different reasons. And when I got kicked out of school, at that time I was always kind of part-time with my ventures, doing it here and there. And I was also working part-time retail jobs too. So I was never really fully into it. But up until that point, we had some good successes, some reasonable wins for having worked barely part-time at it. So when I got kicked out of school, I was scared of like what the consequences would be, what my parents would say. But I used that also as an opportunity to actually go all in on my venture, because now I had this opportunity of time, this gift of time to actually dive into my venture, and I had no risk of being as young as I was at that time. So I went all in. And I also use it as an opportunity to document my stories. So through Instagram, heavy user of Instagram stories, putting the camera up, talking to it. I use that opportunity to document my journey of, going and working, getting kicked out of school, going and working at a co-working space day in and day night, at night, every single day, weekends from 8 a.m. to like 8 p.m., working, what that grind was like. And I did that because before then, I had seen so many people who looked like me on social media doing the things that I wanted to do. And there's that old saying of you can't be what you can't see. And it was because I saw people like me doing the things that I wanted to do that I knew it was possible. So now I knew that I had a unique opportunity, a unique position where I was in, that, a brown dude who got kicked out of school, who our whole lives we've been told you have to go to school, you got to get a degree, that's how you be successful. I want to document and share the story of a different path to show younger versions of me that that's not the only path that you can take. So by doing that, I connected with so many other younger youth and peers as well who are on a similar journey or aspiring to be on a journey like mine. And it also led to me meeting so many new clients, building relationships that I wouldn't have otherwise if it weren't for social media, and coming here today. So social media has done a lot of good for me, but I'm also very aware of the negative effects I can have if you're not too careful.
MashaAllah, man, that's amazing. So turning that seemingly negative experience into something positive that you can lay that foundation on, and paving the way for people to walk on in the future. MashaAllah, that's amazing, man. So we're gonna unpack a little bit of that, but for now I'm gonna stick to you, brother Astawa, because where this is a show for the youth,
Mhm.
particularly one of the target demographics is Muslim youth. I mean, could you talk to us a little bit in terms of some of your own general observations about how are Muslim youth using social media, generally speaking? I mean, what are some trends that you've seen, some things that you've noticed, and then we'll go from there. What do you make of this?
Great question. So, how do Muslim youth use social media, and what trends am I seeing? It's important to keep in mind that Muslim or not, these youth are all in the same bucket, and they're all very much influenced by their peers. If one friend group is doing one thing, or one of your bestest friends, or like the whole class is going on a certain trend with social media, then you're pretty likely to follow that path. And because youth, we forget that youth, we want to treat them like adults, but youth are still kids at the end of the day. They're very malleable. They're very susceptible to falling into peer pressure. And because of that, Muslim youth tend to follow the trends that regular youth follow, which are, I want to show up on social media. I want to blow up my account and have 100,000 followers, all these things. I want to live a great life on social media, even if I'm not living that life offline too, but I want to make it seem like I'm doing that. And I want to use it as a way to fill my time. And it can get very dangerous for youth very quickly because they start to rely on it. It's something that we might notice in Muslim households too, being that there's a lot of people of color in this subset of the demographic, is that we might turn to social media as a crutch sometimes too, because we weren't typically raised in households where sharing our feelings or being heard or having those conversations was a regular thing about, how we're doing, our mental health, or even just at the end of the day, like how our day was. We can turn to social media sometimes to use that as our crutch. And as a result, we can be susceptible to oversharing, sharing small personal details of our lives or documenting things that shouldn't really be documented or shared as well. So that longing for a connection that we might not have at home, I'm seeing Muslim youth fall into a dangerous trap of trying to make social media their friend and their go-to that they give all their secrets to. So it's a slippery slope if they're not careful.
Mashallah, that's a good point. It's using it as an outlet, but it's almost like compensation in a way. If you don't get it offline, then you got to go online, and sometimes it doesn't. It's not one to one.
Mhm.
It's a you play with matches. You know what I mean? It's not
You're
going
gonna
to
get
work.
burned, right? It's
Yeah.
very easy to forget that because so many of us are on our phones in our bedroom with the door closed, alone. It can feel like the conversations or the content you're sharing on social media is private, but we forget that once you put something out on the internet, chances are it's going to be there for a very, very long time.
Yeah, so the digital footprints, you know how many times things just crop up after years and you look, I mean, even for those of you who are on Facebook, I'm sure Facebook has those memories, right? Do you remember what you posted exactly on October 21st, 2016, 2017? I mean, I
Did you
certainly
get that
don't.
today?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like anybody doesn't know. So that's that. So like it's a digital footprint that people tend to overlook. So it's a very good point, and keeping that in check. So Sister Nazifa, let's talk about the sisters in particular, because I know you touched on your intro. You want to feel pretty and all of that. I'm curious, what do you notice among a lot of our sisters that are out there? That how do they use social media? Is it all, I mean, a lot of it driven by image? Is it a lot of it driven by something else? Please feel free to chime in. What is it? What are some trends that you've noticed?
with with social media being such a prominent part in everyone's lives, especially speaking about Muslim youth in general, women, from the women's side, we are constantly being shown these beautiful models, looking very in a particular standard. They all kind of have a similar, very big lips, very like very like chiseled cheekbones, and it just starts making women feel like, wait, am I pretty, and you start comparing yourself to what you see. And the thing that we it's a trap, because you don't realize how much editing goes behind that photo, how much lighting is that. A lot of these models are being under really intense lights. There's so much processing that happens before you see that perfect image on social media, that it just makes us feel like, it makes you feel insecure, that you're not enough, and it really falls into more and more women are having body dysmorphia disorder because they are comparing to what they are seeing. It's really important to keep that authentic message and really focus on the types of content that you're seeing is really important because it really affects you in the way you function and the way you see yourself. So I think that's very important.
Paul, that actually reminds me, there was this viral video of Dove, if I'm not mistaken. I think Dove made a commercial, or they made like this public service announcement, so to speak. There was a commercial. I mean, if you search it up, that speaks to exactly what you were talking about. They take an image of an individual, I believe it was a model, and how much editing, Photoshop, airbrushing, like it was a time lapse of it, and then they put it on the billboard. And the whole point is that like this unrealistic, unattainable perfection of beauty is just really messing with a lot of minds to say like, I gotta look like so and so. That's a big point. That's one trend, I suppose, that sisters. But just to piggyback off that, Brother Astawa, is there any difference for the guys here? Like, do guys have these sort of? What do you think about, like, what's your take on that from like the brothers who are watching? Like, is there any difference? What are some things that you've noticed? Yeah. Anything in particular? Yeah, Brother Astawa? Yeah, okay. Well, I guess something had timed out, but that's all right. But it's okay. We'll continue the conversation, Sister Naz. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is that what do you think is? I think it speaks to a lot with what you were mentioning about comparing and contrasting. What would you say is like the biggest and potentially most harmful mistake a lot of Muslim youth make when using social media? Is there anything in particular that you can point towards and say, like, this is a huge trap, stay away from it, don't do this? Like, what would you say if you could pinpoint to something like that?
I want to say maybe there's two real things that I think. You're trying to fill a void, which is time. You're distracted for several hours because you can sit on TikTok, for example, and you're just scrolling. The way they design it is that you are supposed to be there for hours, and you lose track of being productive with your day-to-day. You're losing your sleep, you're losing just as a human functioning, you end up losing so much time because you are trying to fill this void. Along with that, you are trying to, there's this whole image of constantly feeding yourself all this information and this news. During this COVID time, we're all at home, and the only real interaction we have is picking up our phone and interacting. But then at this point, you're also oversharing things that maybe something you want to keep private, but because you want that human interaction, you're sharing that to the public. The other thing is you're constantly being fed everything that's going on in the world. Sometimes you're overstimulated with too much information. And although it's great to be aware, it also has a very negative impact on how you see the world. And sometimes I know during the very early stages of COVID, I just hearing the constant negativity in the news, it just felt very almost depressing. So I think those are the two real factors when it comes to social media that I think is really important for us to be aware of and use carefully.
I see. So being at the gate of your mind, as they say, like, figure out, what is it? You are what you eat. So you are what you read as well, Spa. So you are what you eat. If you consume junk food, don't be surprised if you're going to be lazy and unhealthy. Similarly, if you're going to constantly read negativity, surprise, surprise, if you're not feeling like you're $1,000,000. Brother Astawa, so I wanted to jump back to you again. Maybe we can do this. We'll tie it into another question. So if you notice any patterns in particular with the brothers in terms of how they use social media, and could you tie that in with your opinion as to what is the single biggest mistake that a lot of Muslim youth make when it comes to social media? So patterns of brothers, biggest mistake.
Man, to piggyback off of what Naz was saying earlier, women do all these things. Women are more likely to do these things to appear a certain way on social media, but on the other side of that coin, because that's happening, brothers can also get a misconstrued perception of how to treat women or how to talk to women or what that engagement relationship looks like. And as a result, that can translate negatively to their real world dealings with the other gender, or even at home, like with their mothers and sisters too. So it's a very slippery slope to start going down when you start seeing, like Nas was saying, it's a constant stream of every 15 minutes or every 3 scrolls, you see a certain picture of a certain image, and then getting fed that over and over again, you start to kind of expect that so and so is going to look like this, or these people like being treated like this, or they speak a certain language. There's a concept called the information diet or the media diet, to which, like you said, is you are what you eat. So if your explore page or if your feed on any sort of social media is constantly filled with a certain type of news or a certain behavior, and you're alone scrolling that feed, you're going to get fed that, and your mind's going to start getting shaped into that line of thinking too. So those patterns that your finger scrolls for you becomes the patterns that your mind starts walking as well. So the single biggest thing that becomes a danger for men, it's finding, this might sound like a strange answer, but it's finding a community that backs up their negative thinking. The internet is, let me explain that a bit more. Yeah. The internet is amazing in that it allows us to find our communities that, that further our passions or make us feel less lonely or support us on our journeys. But it's also dangerous in that there's communities that can help you deepen your disdain for certain things or fuel your hatred or anger towards certain groups. And that's a very dangerous part of the internet because, like Nas was saying, the internet is very sticky. In that if you find something that you like, the way these apps are designed, the way these groups are designed, once you find something that clicks with you or that you like, you're very likely to stick around in that corner of the internet and not go any further. And it's important to keep in mind that these algorithms that we complain about so much that change, these algorithms are designed to serve us. If we like seeing pictures of bowling, or if someone likes engaging with content that degrades women more often, those platforms will conform to their views and feed them more information along those lines too. So it's very dangerous it's an exchange, right? That algorithm change doesn't happen just all of a sudden. The algorithm change happens because we as a user, our behaviors on those apps have informed the actual app, the algorithm, that we want to see more of this. So because of person X's actions, those apps start feeding them more and more, and then that becomes their worldview. Right? We start to think that this is normal. Everyone thinks that because we're seeing it so often.
MashaAllah, man. It reminds me of this phrase, what the thinker thinks, the prover proves. SubhanAllah, man. So like you get back what you give. So if you just, that's a very interesting concept though, that you mentioned when it comes to communities. Yeah, people are looking and starving for a connection, but at the same time, through that starvation, you can end up in the wrong crowd. So just, how mama always used to say, don't hang out with so-and-so because they may be a bad influence. You can get that easily translates over to online as well. So it's not, because one of the things, as you're mentioning this, one thing comes to mind is that it's people at the end of the day. Like we're all using screens, but there's people, like human beings. Someone is actually, behind the screen. And so we're still human beings at the end of the day. It's just a tool.
Yeah, it's very important to remember that social media is just an evolution in communication for us. It's not like, it's not like these sort of things weren't happening before, but it's much more dangerous and accessible now because it's in the palm of our hand and within an arm's reach.
Right. Things are just magnified more and more. Great. So Sister Nazifa, let's talk a bit about identity. For a moment. We talked so much about online. Yeah. Speaking of, where we were talking about how sometimes what we consume online can skew ourselves offline and our image and what have you. I mean, there's this identity crisis, isn't there? I mean, sometimes you might find somebody, taking a quick selfie. Oh, look at me. I'm on the Bahamas and I'm just the party animal. But then in real life, they may be a bookworm. So there's this dichotomy here. On the one side, you're presenting the world the best, most photoshopped, and the greatest, grandest. You're taking a picture beside a Lambo, and that's it. You're a success. But in reality, nothing more than, you can fill in the blanks. So I'm curious, this whole dichotomy. Can you talk to us a bit about this identity and why is this potentially a problem for a lot of Muslim youth?
I'll speak from the influencer perspective. When we are working with brands, they are looking at our feed. It needs to be pretty. If it's not pretty, they don't want to work with you. Um, because users are attracted to seeing pretty looking feeds. It needs to resonate with the audience. So with that in mind, influencers are forced in a way, not completely, but they have to start curating their content to make it look picture perfect. So in the process of making everything picture perfect, there is a lot of staging that happens behind the scenes, a lot of planning, a lot of when somebody's posting something, that's not in real time. They've taken that months ago, weeks ago. Either they had a team of professional photographers that were doing it, who edited, filtered, made sure it all looks beautiful. Pulled up the feed. But you have to realize that all of this has to be from a marketing perspective. Our lives are not meant for marketing. Our lives are we're real humans. So everything isn't going to be this picturesque thing. So we have to remember not to compare ourselves in that situation, that just because so-and-so's feed looks like that, they're always traveling, they're always showing the luxuriousness of their life, that they're behind the scenes of this fashion show, that thing, that's not real. A lot of it is, a lot of the times there's a lot of hard work behind it. A lot of it is for show. A lot of it is to keep up with an image that they have to present. So just keep that in mind every time you look at someone's feed. In reality, they are probably more human than you realize.
MashaAllah. Out of curiosity, I wanted to expand a bit more in terms of like putting on your influencer hat for a second. Does it get exhausting? I'm just curious. Is it exhausting for you? Like, how do you make that balance between, okay, like it makes sense, you don't want to put out content that is less than like subpar content, but does it take a toll on you off, like is there a line that you draw? Like how do you mitigate that, I guess, speaking as an influencer?
Yeah, for me, I like to set boundaries for myself, whether it is when I post a photo, I give myself that 1 hour to interact with my audience, and then I put it away. It's done. You use that time to engage with your audience, to make it very authentic, because they are trying to get to know you, and so you give your audience your authentic self, but you also have to learn about your limitations. And so I have a 9-to-5 job. I'm not on my phone while I'm doing that. I either schedule my posts ahead of time. I use apps to support me in that way, schedule it, post, interact in that 1 hour, and then put it away, because I do have another life outside of this. This is just purely a hobby and a great way of interacting and connecting with like-minded people. So for me, it's setting boundaries and really following through when it comes to knowing when to shut off. Sometimes there are so many emails that you're constantly getting, notifications you're constantly getting. Sometimes you just need to learn how to just turn it off and just be present.
So it looks like you got to set boundaries for yourself. No one's gonna do it for you, otherwise it just keeps going.
It's always going to be there. It's not going to go away. It's something that I am still working on, but you have to know how to put it away and be present.
Very cool. All right, Brother Astawa, talk to us. What's your take on this whole identity crisis? Online, offline persona. Yeah.
Have you heard about the fact that you can actually go rent time in a private jet studio to take Instagram pictures? Have you heard about this?
No, talk to us. What's that?
This is a real thing that is a result of clout chasers on Instagram and social media. So now, because people want to post the most luxurious life, that I'm over here, I'm traveling to the Bahamas, I'm doing this, I'm always grinding, I'm XYZ, because they always want to keep this brand image around them. Sets are popping up now where you can go rent time, or you can rent people to hang out with, or you can rent a lifestyle to showcase on social media. That's how bad it's, right? So, people might go rent a private jet for like 30 minutes, take a dozen pictures, leave, and then go back home to their dinky little apartment to eat ramen noodles. That's where we are with offline identities and online identities. There's this mismatch of who you're trying to be versus who you really are. And especially in the Muslim youth, it's much more amplified, right? Not just because they're young and they're kids, but also because at that age, they want to be something. They want to project a certain image. And they want to be like the things that they see online too, which again, I've used this word 100 times, but it's slippery slope, because if you don't have role models that you can actually look up to offline, then who you are offline becomes predicated by who you start following, who you click that blue button for. And it's important to remember that social media can amplify who you naturally are, right? If you're a great speaker, if you want to do TED Talks, if you want to host TV shows, if you're a Mohammed Maxwell Hassan, social media will give you an outlet to be that to your fullest. But if you are an insecure kid who needs to always get validation from people, who needs that follow back, who needs comments on your pictures, social media will only amplify your insecurity. So it's very important to be thoughtful and aware and have that self-awareness of who you are before you pick up the phone, and how that's going to be translated online too. Because if you know that you are someone who doesn't have a lot of friends or has trouble meeting people, social media might be great for you to connect with a couple people, but it's not going to build those soft skills for you. That's why it's super important for youth. I know it's hard at that age, and it's our job as mentors and as people who are looking at them to pull them out when they do get sucked in. But it's important at that age to start developing those soft skills, because if you don't develop it or have some sort of base at that time, as you get older, it becomes more difficult to build that too. So having self-awareness, having self-confidence, and knowing that who you are online isn't who you are offline, right? There's this whole concept of who is going to show up at your funeral. You might have 100,000, a million, 100 million followers on Instagram across all the social media, but how many of them will actually show up at your funeral when the time comes? And if you're doing all these things, you're clout chasing to get all those followers and get all those likes, do they care about what's actually going on in your day-to-day? Why are you breaking your back to show off this lifestyle to get all these likes for people who don't even know you at the end of the day?
Man, very thought-provoking and very sombering thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, why are you trying to impress people that you don't know, just to get that little sense of what's it called? Yeah, you know what I mean? And I don't know what to say about the whole renting of a private jet. I mean, I guess kudos to the people who made money off of that. I mean, they found a way, but I think it really spotlights and highlights. That's what this is the whole topic of today, man. The dark side of social media. And actually, there was a comment about this. I remember that this whole term of instant gratification. Why work towards owning a Porsche when I can stand beside a Porsche and just take a snapshot and caption it? At the end of the day. So it's like almost people are afraid of hard work. They're afraid of, look at that. See that interior? I mean, come on.
Like the real thing.
It's the real thing, right? It's a real thing. We could do the show right there, and we could call it Candidate Today on a Jet.
Yeah, I mean, Jet Edition. Oh, that's interesting. But I don't know what to say, man. I really don't know what to say. It's I mean, I hope and pray that this isn't something prevalent. I mean, it's good that it seems to be like an anomaly, but the fact that it's there speaks volumes, and I think it just highlights something deeper that we need to unpack. And like you said, just making that distinction, who you are. I mean, I think the goal, and speaking to what Sister Nazifa is saying, is that who you are offline, it carries over online. That's the whole point of a brand. You don't want to just limit yourself offline, because if no one knows you online, then it's like you're non-existent. I heard it been put like this, that if you're not on Google, you don't exist. Right? I heard it like that. Like if I type in your name, I mean, think about it. When you're trying to apply for a job, what's the first thing that recruiters are going to do? Who are you? Right? How do I, if you don't have an online presence of some kind, then but then where's the line being drawn and the validation? And I got to feel significant. So buddy, that's where the whole working, mashallah, like you built up your agency from the ground up. It's not just some, happenstance, something falls from the sky, but amazing. I mean, like the fact that you too, mashallah, are using social media in a way and you're guiding to it. You're not like, I hope and pray that we all stay on on track and that we are all in good shape in that regard. So now at this stage of the show, if I can kindly ask you both, let's start with Sister Nazifa. Are there any resources or any sort of talks that you really would recommend that really helps out with this kind of topic of social media and how to, like, was there a commercial, was there a movie, was there something that really stuck with you that really helped shape your perspective on, you mentioned like you're drawing that line, it's important to have boundary. Was there something out there that really helped you develop that? I mean, what resources are out there for folks to really say, hey, you know what, I got to dial it back with social media? What's out there?
On a daily basis, I feel like our imams are doing such an excellent job of being present on social media because they are there to have
Shout
that
out Mufti Mink,
interaction
right?
with you. Mufti Mink is like someone
yeah.
I love following because he talks about real issues and he gives you that Islamic khutbah behind everything that's happening in current times. So I feel like I'm so glad that we have these opportunities to have this direct communication with our imam. Mufti Mink, Imam Omar
Sulaiman.
Salman, yes. They do such a good job of communicating in a language we understand. We can, and it's easy to digest. They constantly do talks, lives where you can ask them direct questions, and that kind of interaction from real influencers is what our youth really need. During Ramadan, I know Mufti Mink was doing like lives twice a day. And I watched his lives, and it was always youth that were asking him, like, I'm depressed because of this. And the explanations that he were giving was so like heartwarming. And I feel like we need to have more of that and really consume that kind of information. That way we have a tie between our religion and trends, just to find a common language.
All right, building those bridges. And mashallah, again, the coolest thing is that when you mention scholars, I mean, there are some scholars thousands of miles away and you have access to it for free. Like, that's a big deal. I don't think people really grab the gravity of the situation. They don't really take that in. I mean, the fact that, in the past, in order to obtain knowledge, you had to walk for miles just to get there. Now it's in the palm of your hands, and like you can have access to anyone. If I want to hear a speaker from America, boom.
Right.
I want to hear someone from Europe, okay. No barriers, nothing. That's amazing. So those talks and that's amazing to hear.
They do a great job of staying current. They do a really good job of talking about issues that are current. A lot of the conversations that we're having today, they have it daily through Twitter or social media, whatever it is. They're constantly having it. So if you are having challenges, reach out to them. They are honestly very good at responding back and actually interacting with our youth. So
there you go. Perfect. All right. I'll take it to you, Brother Astawa. Any resources out there that you could kindly enlighten us with? Any ideas that, something that you can point towards for youth in social media?
For sure. You two right now are talking about a very important topic in social media, making it a safe space for yourself, which is something I mentioned a little earlier, is curating your information diet. We have the power to control what we see on our feeds, who we follow, and what sort of information comes across our phones. If you want to follow people that educate you, if you want to follow people in your industry or imams that can educate you, go do that. Because if you follow, rap stars and this and that, and people who might not be filling you with knowledge, that could be dangerous. Right now on the screen, the viewers are seeing a company called Safe Social Media, which is actually a client of DXM, and we work very closely with them to develop this website and get their branding out there, the message out there, which really is that social media is a drug just like anything else. And we know in Islam that Islam preaches a lot about moderation. It's not social media that's the problem, it's how we use it that can be a challenge. So I would definitely encourage your listeners and the audience here today to go check out safesocialmedia.co. They have tons of resources and guidance on how to understand if you have a problem or not, how to actually approach social media, and how to actually seek help if this is a problem for you. And something else that I want to recommend is right now, if you have an iPhone, iOS 14 just came out and we have widgets that we can add to. a great way to moderate your use and understand if you do have an addiction or if social media is taking you down the wrong path is to use apps or features like screen time. Put your screen time on your phone, on your homepage, somewhere you can see it, because us humans, we're more aware. If we're more aware of a bad habit, we're more likely to stop doing it. So if I see that I've spent 2 hours today scrolling TikTok, I can tell myself like, hey, that's enough TikTok for today. Let's move on to something else. Let's do something else. Let's put my phone down. So to sum it up, I would say curate information diet. We have the power, like you mentioned, to connect with anyone, anywhere in the world. So why don't we pick who we connect with? Number two, check out resources and organizations like, say, social media that can tell you if you have a problem, how to navigate it, and set limits for yourself. Nas talked about boundaries and knowing when to put our phone down. You can do the same thing with understanding how you use social media as well, and when too much is too much for you.
Amazing, mashallah. Now, I mean, a lot to take in here, but again, as always, all good things must come to an end. It's been a phenomenal talk so far with you two, but as always, I like to give the opportunity to you both to have parting words of wisdom. Let's go with Sister Nazifa as the influencer. Let's say there's a sister right now watching this. She's secretly scrolling through hours a day. She's seeing all kinds of content and she's not aware. Maybe she doesn't know that social media, but there's something in her that doesn't really sit right. What advice would you give her? What advice would you give to our Muslim sisters out there who may be dealing with social media and alarm bells aren't ringing, but yet, they're going down a potentially destructive path? What advice would you give?
I would always say start off with having a support system, whether it is your parents, a teacher, a friend, someone trusted. Have that support system and have these clear conversations with them that this is what I've been feeling, this is what I've been experiencing. I feel like it's going to go down this route, and share. More often than not, your peer, they are everyone's very understanding, and they can also experience similar symptoms, very similar experiences. So really share with someone you trust, and I think that's a great way to have these conversations. Also, like we talked about during our talk today, really curate who you see, what you're seeing, keep it authentic to yourself. What I know we have the algorithm that plays towards what we want to see. So use it to your advantage. Constantly fuel yourself with information that you want to learn more about, things that will help you grow, give you a positive mindset. So really surround yourself. It's like our parents say, make good friends, don't fall into it's your environment that helps you grow. So make sure you nurture that, and inshallah everything will be great.
Amazing. So the environment. And so I'll leave it with you, Brother Astawal. What advice? There's a brother watching this right now. He's looking at you and he's like, man, this guy, he had something with school, but he turned it around, and mashallah, he built himself up. He's using social media to his advantage. What advice would you give to him? What would you say so that way he could maximize the best possible outcomes in using social media? What has been true and true again for you that's helped you get to where you are and where you need to be? What advice would you give to him?
Man, I would tell him to remember that the work happens off your phone. The work happens offline. Just because you see the Gary Vee or someone else posting about hard work and hustle and grind day and night doesn't mean so-and-so or this person is actually doing the work. There's an old adage that says, work 10 years with your head down and then let success make the noise. And that's what I think is very important. And we forget easily because, again, posting a picture of a wad of cash or a nice car gets a ton of likes, and doing the work to build a business that can pay your bills is a little bit harder and takes a little bit longer than that too. So put your head down, do the work, and be ruthless with who you unfollow. You are not owed or obliged to follow this person because you went to school with them, or so-and-so because they know your friend. If they are not bringing value to your life, if seeing their content hurts you negatively or makes you question who you are and what you're doing, and, oh, this person has made it so big and I'm doing nothing with my life, unfollow them. It does not matter. You got to put yourself first, your mental health, your well-being. Put yourself first, and only good things will come into your life.
MashaAllah, man. That's amazing. It reminds me of a phrase from Tony Robbins. You're rewarded in public for what you practice in private.
100%, man.
SubhanAllah, man. You're rewarded in public. Yeah,
Muhammad
man.
Ali said something similar too. He said, champions are made when no one's watching, right? It's very easy and very tempting to be public on Instagram and post myself working into the midnight hours. But, you know, if anyone's looking, well, I still keep working. Right.
Amazing, amazing, man. That's super amazing. So thank you both so much. I wish this conversation could go longer, but boy, oh boy, a lot of gems were dropped throughout the whole stream. Thank you both, Sister Nazifa and Brother Astawa. Amazing stuff. Both of you have been phenomenal. And I mean, until next time, I'm sure you both are going to keep going, keep doing what you're doing, using social media for the force of good. You know, as they say, with great power comes great responsibility, and you two are leading the way for that. So thank you both so much for that. Now I want to take it to the viewers for a quick second. I want to talk to you all directly. So, you know, we talked about today social media. It's the same old. Social media is a tool. You could use it for good, you could use it for evil. It's very easy to fall into those traps. But remember, at the end of the day, you are what you read. You are what you read. Just like, you know, you are what you eat, you are what you read. So be aware of that. Look through your feed. Look through the stuff that you're going through. I mean, is it really helping you? Is it really helping you? Is it really something that you can look at? And all you got to do, I'll share with you one quick thing. All you got to do is just one thing, and it's called replacements. Just swap out things. So if there's something, let's say you're scrolling through a lot of entertainment. I mean, entertainment. Why don't you swap it with a podcast once in a while? Maybe you'll learn something new. Why don't you swap those images that you keep seeing of the Bahamas with something, you know, something that would help you and inspire? So just swap it. That's all you got to do. Swapping, you know, a lot of things would make a huge difference in your life. If you see those negative Nancys or those naysayers all the time, guess who you're going to become? It's not going to be a big surprise. So when you fill yourself with good, inshallah, you're going to be good. And so you are what you eat. You are what you read. And with that, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, your feedback is always welcome. It's a two-way street. Social media is not just one way. We're always hoping and always willing to have conversations. That's where the stuff is made. And just like Brother Astawa mentioned, you know, work offline to get the results online. That's where the magic happens. And bi'idhnillah, thank you so much for tuning in today's episode. Hope you enjoy it. Come every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is your host, Brother Muhammad Maxwell Hassan here. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.